Hot off the presses and breaking news, a federal judge in New York has denied the Trump administration's attempt to mislead the American people into thinking that the grand jury transcripts in the Maxwell and Epstein criminal cases are the Epstein Files, and has denied having those grand jury transcripts released to the American people. But before he does it, Judge Paul Englemayer in New York does a couple of critical things that advances the debate and the charges against the Trump administration for hiding and covering up the Epstein conspiracy. In the first part of this order that I'm going to read to you, I'm going to put it up on Legal AF Substack as well. In the first part, he outlines all the ways that Ghislaine Maxwell is not a victim, but that she was convicted of heinous crimes and being involved with the rape and sexual abuse of girls. I think he does that for a reason, to set the record straight. Now that he's read, I'm sure, all of the attempts by the Trump administration and others around him to rehabilitate the reputation of Ghislaine Maxwell, much to the discredit of the victims, undermining again and victimizing the victims. So there's that section of the order. Let's talk about who Ghislaine Maxwell really is based on evidence, not based on right-wing podcasters and right-wing sycophants for Donald Trump trying to make Ghislaine Maxwell's future pardon palatable. Then he goes over all the ways that the government has previously promised that they would be completely transparent and release all of the documents, 300 gigabytes of documents. Judge Englemayer reminds the Trump administration and the public for the public record of that as well. And then finally, he looks at the fact that there are no special circumstances present at all to undermine what's called the rule of secrecy, which generally cloaks any grand jury process in secrecy so it's not disclosed to the public for good reason. He finds no special circumstances are present and finds basically that the Trump position is laughable and demonstrably false. His words. I'm Michael Popok. These are my words. I'm on MeidasTouch and on Legal AF. I got it in my hands. I wanted to report on it right away. But the structure of the opinion and order by Judge Englemayer, so powerful in what he says about the Trump position to set the record straight. And that's what federal judges should be doing. He's the second federal judge to have rejected Donald Trump's attempt to redefine for the American public in their mind that the Epstein Files are the grand jury transcripts. He reminded Judge Englemayer, just as Judge Rosenberg did when she rejected a similar application 2 weeks ago. And there's one more that we're waiting on, because Englemayer is the judge that took over the case involving Maxwell. We're still waiting for the Epstein judge to make his ruling, but I'm sure it'll be about the same. And as part of process, how we got here is that the government moved to unseal, stating, get this, as Donald Trump is telling his public and MAGA, there's nothing to see here. Why are we still talking about this story? You're asking, that's criminal. You're asking this story again. I'm trying to talk about tariffs. At the same time, the Bondi and the Attorney General files papers saying it's of great public importance. The public needs to know about the Epstein Files, which we want people to believe is just the grand jury. And the grand jury was just one day grand jury for Epstein, one day grand jury for Ghislaine Maxwell. There were 2 total witnesses in the grand jury, and the only people they testified about sexual criminal conduct by Maxwell and Epstein, and that was it. Just summary witnesses by law enforcement. So the judge is like, there's nothing here that hasn't already been brought out to the public, and more is in the public based on lawsuits brought by the victims. But let me go through in order the structure of this. First, the judge letting the public know in his own way that not only is Ghislaine Maxwell no saint, but she is a criminal sinner when it comes to the abuse of girls and women and her involvement in it. She's not a victim. She is the henchman and the only living co-conspirator of this child sex trafficking ring. This is what he says on pages 2 through 4. On June 29, 2020, a grand jury in this district, that's in New York, returned a 6-count indictment against Maxwell, alleging that she had facilitated and participated in Epstein's sexual abuse of multiple minor girls. It charged her with conspiracy to entice minors to engage in illegal sex acts, conspiracy to transport minors with intent to engage in illegal sexual activity, transportation of a minor with intent to engage in illegal sexual activity, and 2 counts of perjury. It based these charges on her conduct with respect to 3 minor victims whom the government identified pseudonymously, meaning they didn't name the names. On July 8th, the grand jury returned a superseding indictment, this time adding charges of sex trafficking conspiracy, sex trafficking of a minor in the indictment, and sexual abuse from 1994 to 2004. Then on pages 2 to 3, Judge Englemayer reminds the world that Maxwell was given a trial. Sometimes you watch right-wing media and you're like, oh, why is she in prison? Well, here's why she's in prison. It was before Judge Allison Nathan. She's now been elevated to the Second Circuit. There were 6 counts. And the jury on the indictment ended with a conviction of 5 of the 6 counts, including the 5 of the 6 counts. In brief, the government's, this is on page 3. In brief, the government's evidence included the testimony of 4 women who described the sexual abuse they had suffered as girls at the hands of Epstein and Maxwell. She's not a victim. She's a participant in deviant sexual abuse of girls. The testimony of the individuals who worked for Epstein and Maxwell, the testimony of law enforcement officials, corroborating physical evidence, including photographs of evidence and recovered from searches of Epstein's residence. That's the Epstein Files, the searches of Epstein's residence. The black book for Epstein and Maxwell, corroborating records, the flight logs to the island, and the rest. The trial evidence, the judge continues, focused on 6 girls, including the 4 testifying victims who suffered abusive sexual conduct as a result of Maxwell's criminal actions. There's a reason the judge is so focused on setting the record straight on Maxwell. And credit to him, because he understands there are thousands of victims, including those who had the courage to testify against Maxwell at trial, including the ones that have been named with pseudonyms Jane, Kate, Annie, Carolyn, Virginia, and Melissa. It established that Maxwell, the judge continues, had been instrumental in an approximately decade-long scheme of Epstein to entice, groom, transport, and traffic numerous women and underage girls to engage in sexual activity. Maxwell helped to identify these vulnerable girls for abuse. She then, on page 4, she manipulated that trust to normalize sexual abuse by Epstein and her. See, she's involved. Maxwell and Epstein also paid young girls cash for the sexual abuse. Maxwell fostered a culture of silence. There's a reason the judge leads off with that. That's a credit to the victims. That is a testimony for the victims so that they're not lost and forgotten in this case. You ever have a meal that just stays with you? Like for me, it was this spicy citrus marinated grilled fish thing I had on vacation last summer. It was perfectly charred, bursting with flavor, and I still crave it. That's exactly what Cook Unity delivers. Meals so good they stick in your memory. Cook Unity was made for adventurous eaters. With countless global cuisines from more than 160 award-winning chefs, explore an ever-expanding menu of small batch meals tailored to your lifestyle, dietary needs, and cravings, and get them delivered right to your door. My go-to, Chef Andres Mendez's chicken pibil bowl with passion fruit. Perfectly juicy protein, that sauce I could drink by the spoonful, and made with humanely raised meat and organic ingredients when possible. It feels like savoring, not sacrificing, and I have more energy all day. These are handcrafted meals from Food Network alums, James Beard Award winners, and acclaimed restaurateurs, never frozen, ready in as little as 5 minutes, and at a fraction of restaurant prices. Get what you're craving. Try the freshest, best-tasting meal delivery made by your favorite celebrity chefs. Go to cookunity.com/legalAFfree or enter code LegalAFfree before checkout for free premium meals for life. That's free premium meals for life by using code LegalAFfree or going to cookunity.com/LegalAFfree. Terms and conditions apply. Go to cookunity.com for details. The judge then goes on to talk about, for a good reason, all the times the Trump administration has said to the American people they're going to be completely transparent and that they have the Epstein files in their possession. See, the grand jury transcripts are not even the Epstein files. This is the judge announcing to the world, I'm not going to be releasing the grand jury files, but they're not the Epstein files. The Epstein files, the Trump administration has. It's always powerful when a federal judge reminds you of that. So here's what he says on pages 6, 7, and 8 of the order. He says, on February 27, 2025, the Department of Justice issued a press release. It stated that the Attorney General and the FBI had declassified and were publicly releasing files relating to Epstein's exploitation of more than 250 girls, quoting the Attorney General and the FBI, that they're committed to transparency and lifting the veil of the disgusting actions. The first phase of the files will be released. There'll be no cover-ups, no missing document, and no stone left unturned. That's Kash Patel quoted back to him by Judge Englemayer. In the same press release, this is on page 7. The judge said that there's a letter from the Attorney General to the FBI Director, Kash Patel, saying, by 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including video and the rest. On July 6th, the judge reports, the DOJ and FBI issued another memorandum regarding Epstein, in which it stated that there were 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence, that the FBI conducted digital searches of databases, hard drives, network drives, physical searches of squad areas, lock cabinets, desks, closets, and other areas, and that the Epstein files include a large volume of images of Epstein, of victims of child sexual abuse, most of which had not been disclosed at trial, but that they had not yet recovered the client list. The judge's reason for putting this in to his order is, where are all those documents? That is what the public needs. Don't come knocking on my door to ask me to violate the rule of secrecy about grand jury transcripts that don't have anything in it except for testimony by law enforcement about Maxwell and Epstein. Release the files. He's doing a public service here. Then, after validating the victims, after excoriating the Trump administration for lying to the American people about releasing the Epstein files that they have not released and continue to this moment to refuse to release, it's the crime and the cover-up. He then goes over the reason, the rationale, the basis for Donald Trump coming to court asking Engelmeyer and other judges to release the grand jury files. And he says, it seems to be extensive public interest in this, which is being fomented by the Trump administration's refusal to be transparent. And remember, at the same time, you got Donald Trump saying, this is boring details. This is boring stuff. Can't we talk about tariffs? Why are we still talking about Epstein? At the same time, his Department of Justice and Pam Bondi runs to court and files a document that says it's of great public importance. The judge says, well, let me take a close look at that argument and see if that gets over the secrecy issue. And what the judge says there is, let me take a look at that issue. It says under page 15 over to 19, the government invokes the special circumstance doctrine on the ground that there is abundant public interest, including that the public officers, lawmakers, and pundits and ordinary citizens remain deeply interested in this matter, and it's a critical part of our nation's history. Here's what the judge says about that. The government's invocation of special circumstances on page 16 of his opinion fails at the threshold. Its entire premise that the Maxwell grand jury materials would bring to light meaningful new information about Epstein's and Maxwell's crimes or the government's investigation into them is demonstrably false. The court having received the government's motion to unseal and having reviewed substantial amounts of grand jury materials in camera reveals that the government's submission in response to the court's orders are telling. This is on page 16. They belied the government's claim that the Maxwell grand jury materials contain significant undisclosed information about Epstein's and Maxwell crimes or the investigation into them. There's none of that. He said, I looked inside of that. There were one-day grand juries with one witness or two witnesses apiece doing summary evidence. They're just annotated, they're just transcripts of stuff that's either already in the public domain or doesn't compare to the 300 gigabytes that you say that you haven't released to the public. So here's the judge in his own way saying the same thing. Release the damn files. And don't come knocking at my door or sending the press to me, acting like I'm covering it up by not releasing the grand jury files. That's the point of this. There's no there. He says on page 19, insofar as the motion to unseal implies that the grand jury materials are an untapped mine lode of undisclosed information about Epstein or Maxwell or Confederates, they definitely are not that. A public official, lawmaker, pundit, or ordinary citizen deeply interested or concerned who reviewed these materials expecting, based on the government's representations, to learn new information about Epstein's and Maxwell's crimes and the investigation into them would come away feeling disappointed and misled. There is no there. I'm not releasing the grand jury transcripts. Release the damn files. That's my end line for Judge Engelmayer's 38-page order. We're going to get another one from the judge that's handling the Epstein side of the grand jury transcripts. But I wanted you to take away from this how important and powerful the way the judge starts with vindicating the victims, undermining Maxwell's argument that she's a victim in the public's mind, reminding people of the gross and detest crimes that she committed, and then reminding the public that the Trump administration is misleading you about the definition of the Epstein Files, and they should be releasing them. I'm going to continue to cover this story both here on MeidasTouch and on Legal AF. Come over to Legal AF, hit the free subscribe button. A dozen new videos a day. I got some great interviews about the Epstein matter coming up on the channel. Sky Perryman, Democracy Forward, whose group filed the one and only lawsuit to obtain from the administration all of the files that Judge Engelmayer just identified. She's coming on to talk about that and the fact that Judge Chutkan in the DC election interference case has been assigned to that case, only on Legal AF YouTube. So until my next report, this is Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.